So perfect. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's Rainbow Registered session. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that the land we identify as RTO9 is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat peoples. RTO9 will honor and respect the land, the people, and the treaties. We are extremely thankful for the original tour guides of these lands and all that they have shared. All those that reside, work, and play on these lands are treaty people, and we must honor the treaties in a mutually beneficial and equitable manner. With 1 in 5 Indigenous people in Canada living in Ontario, we believe working together in a mutually beneficial manner will help all Ontarians prosper through the joint development of the tourism industry. As an ally to Indigenous people and a partner of Indigenous Tourism Ontario, RTO9 will commit to improving the socioeconomic conditions of Indigenous people through tourism by creating space for Indigenous people to tell their stories on their terms. Now, just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. First, if you didn't hear, this is being recorded. It will be available for viewing after today's session on the RTO9 website, which is just rto9.ca. There will be a question period at the end, so feel free if you have any questions during the presentation to pop them in the Q&A box if you want to do it anonymously, or you can just put it into the chat window. We're all going to be keeping an eye on things. You're also going to receive an email following the session today, just with a quick 2-minute survey link. If you're able to spare some time to review the session, that would be greatly appreciated. And now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to our two lovely facilitators this morning from the CGLCC, Merve and Connor.
Thanks so much, Meg. It's great to be here. We love working with RTO9. And Meg, I think this is like the second or third thing we've done together. So always a pleasure to work with you. And thanks so much to everyone who registered for today or who's watching this back on the recording. Thanks for tuning in to our Rainbow Registered info session. So before we tell you what we're going to talk about today, I think our next slide is some introductions. Yes, okay. So starting off with me, my name is Connor. I use he, him, and they, them pronouns. They both work for me. And I'm the business development manager for our national programs at CGLCC. I'm coming to you from Chibuktuk, also known as Halifax, located in Nova Scotia. And I'm here with my lovely colleague here today who will introduce herself now.
Hi, folks. Glad to be here. My name is Merve. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the National Business Development Coordinator. And I'm tuning in from Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. And yeah, just happy to be here and happy to share some information with you folks. And that will be all from my side.
Thanks, Merve. I'm going to start off with a bit of an intro on 2S LGBTQI plus inclusive workplaces. We're going to talk about Rainbow Registered and what it actually means to be accredited. So I'm going to start off, and then Merve is going to lead the way with the Rainbow Registered piece following my portion on inclusive workplaces. So let's dive in here. So a bit about us and who we are. The Rainbow Registered Accreditation Program is administered by the Canadian 2S LGBTQI+ Chamber of Commerce. So this is the org that Merve and I both work for. It's made up of a coalition of 2S LGBTQI+ businesses, entrepreneurs, allies, government liaisons, community partners like RTO9, and also students of business, all of whom are advocating working towards a more inclusive Canadian economy. So whether you're in our mentorship program, whether you're in our corporate partner program, or whether you're a Rainbow registered destination or business, you are part of our holistic mission to work towards a more inclusive Canadian economy. So some stats. So why is it important? Why do we do the work that we do? Why are 2S LGBTQI plus inclusive spaces important? Let's talk about some of the barriers to start off. It's estimated that about 1 million Canadians are lesbian, gay, or bisexual, and that almost a third of them are between the ages of 15 and 14. So just a bit of a snapshot of the community we're talking about here. It's also estimated that about 100,000 Canadians over the age of 15 identify themselves as trans or non-binary, which is super interesting to me. And actually here in Nova Scotia, it's very interesting because we have the largest population of gender diverse folks in the entire country, which our most recent census in 2021 just found out. And it was actually the very first census in the country that ever tracked the non-binary folks living in the country as well. So that was really cool for me to see, and cool that that number is so high. But also, I think rising and maybe a bit lower, like with this one and with the previous ones, just because folks aren't always like going to self-identify on a form like for Stats Canada. So a good like idea, but I would go as far to say that both of these numbers are probably even higher in reality. So let's talk a little bit about the acronym, a little bit of history about it, because I'm sure you've heard the acronym said in different ways with different letters used as well. So the acronym was created in the 80s, and it started just as LGB for lesbian, gay, and bi. And then in the 90s, the T was added. So it became LGBT. The acronym, it continued to expand and evolved as we brought more voices into our community, learned more about different experiences under the queer umbrella. We grew to LGBTQ, which was sometimes known as questioning. I feel like the community has landed on it being queer. Yeah, thanks, Merve. The next one is I for intersex, then A for asexual or agender. And now just recently our federal government went in alignment with the acronym that the community was using, which is 2S LGBTQIA+. So the 2S stands for Two Spirit, and it's right at the very front. And Two Spirit is an Indigenous identity that speaks to holding two gender spirits. So that's a bit of an overview of our acronym here. And this is our Canadian acronym as well. In the US, they'll have a different acronym. They don't have 2S in the acronym in the US. So also just to give folks some insight as to why they might hear a different acronym sometimes. Of course, different communities are different. The more diverse voices that we bring into the discussion, the more we learn how we can better serve our community. And I want to speak to like the future as well, to where I think I see it going, because I honestly I see us including more diverse voices, more perspectives, and I see need for the acronym to serve the community better, but also like in a way that is like clear and concise. Because if I have to add any more letters to 2S LGBTQIA+, I'm gonna sound a bit like a robot doing code in all my workshops that I do here. So the community has been trying to land on an acronym that's really clear and concise, and but also inclusive, because like I said, as we're bringing more diverse voices in, we're finding current limitations with 2S LGBTQIA+ are coming up when we look at folks from different cultures and different languages. I've got a colleague, and in the country that he grew up in, uh, the word for his identity is not included in the 2S LGBTQIA+ acronym. The word that we might use in Canada to speak about his identity is gay, but that is not, it doesn't have a direct translation to his native language, and it's not how he ever identified. So it's a Western way for us to speak about his identity. So you can see why that, might not be super inclusive. And I was in a workshop a couple of years ago with someone, and she was talking about a similar experience, how in her language, they didn't have a word for lesbian, and the direct, translation of lesbian wasn't exactly how she, saw herself growing up in the word that they had in her culture. So the acronym and word below, SOGI-esque, is where I see like very forward-thinking activist communities going towards with the 2S LGBTQIA+ acronym. It stands for sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, and sex characteristics. So that, of course, would include our colleague's identity, and that would include the woman's identity from a few years ago who spoke up in the workshop about her identity not being included in 2S LGBTQIA and being a part of the plus. SOGS, because it says sexual orientation, gender identity, and then expression and sex characteristics, it would capture anyone who falls under the 2S LGBTQI plus community. So SOGS, I feel like, is the future. It's easier for me to say than 2S LGBTQI plus, less widely known. So we still use 2S LGBTQI plus, but I don't know. I'm seeing it more and more often. I feel like there could be a shift in the future. And if that ever happens, you folks can say you heard it first years ago before it ever got popular. So you're in the know. So I'm gonna chat a little bit about some of the core pillars of the 2S LGBTQI plus community and some of the knowledge pillars you need to build when you're thinking about serving the community in an inclusive way. So we talk a lot about sexual orientation, gay, lesbian, bisexual, but let's talk a lot about gender diversity. The community has typically had a huge spotlight on sexual orientation, with conversations around gender diversity sometimes being a bit trickier for folks. So we're going to make sure you leave today with a good understanding of gender diversity. So under the gender diversity umbrella, there are three terms specifically that I want you folks to learn today. And the first one is sex. So your sex is assigned at birth. It's a designation, and it's informed by your genital configuration. So my mother was assigned female at birth. My father was assigned the sex male at birth. My brother was assigned the sex male at birth. I was assigned the sex male at birth. Gender identity, personal understanding and experience of gender. So this is how someone's personal understanding of their gender. So my sex and assigned birth is male, but my gender identity is non-binary. I identify as someone who's non-binary. I don't feel like totally anchored within the masculine gender experience. I feel like it really fluctuates with me and goes beyond that. So my gender identity is non-binary. My mom's personal experience of her gender is one that's very feminine and female, and she identifies as a woman because of that. And same with my, but not the same, actually, opposite to that. My father's experience of his gender is one that's very masculine, and he identifies as a male. Gender expression. So this is your mannerisms, your behaviors, your style of dress, body decoration, and it's typically reflective of current social norms and cultural contexts too. So my mom, like I said, her experience of her gender is very feminine. She dresses very feminine as well. She styles her hair. She wears makeup all the time. My dad, his experience of his gender and his gender expression, again, is masculine. So he, like, when he goes to work, he wears a suit. And I don't know what else does gender is weird, but my dad, he definitely perceives himself as a masculine person. But for me, my gender expression, I kind of tread all kinds of different lines. Like, I'll dress masculine some days, but there's some days that I dress more female. And especially maybe if I'm hanging out with friends, I'll feel more comfortable and wear different things, or maybe even wear makeup. I wear jewelry sometimes too, actually a lot of times. And even sometimes in the way that I express myself, sometimes like verbally as well, and definitely in my mannerisms, my gender expression is, I would say, not deeply rooted in a masculine experience for sure. So my gender expression is one that I'd say non-binary, but it, like, I don't know, it kind of fluctuates as well sometimes too, sometimes on the more feminine side, sometimes on the more masculine side. And someone, who really knew 2S LGBTQI plus terms really well would say, Connor, well, that means you're gender fluid. And so I'd say, well, kind of like, I don't know, non-binary gender fluid is maybe, like, if we want to get really specific, that's what I would say, but we don't have to worry too much about that today. So before I go on, there's three more terms that I want to chat about. One, non-binary, I've been chatting about a lot. That's the one right here in the middle. So I identify as non-binary, and that means that my experience of gender, my gender identity, isn't rooted in masculine, but it's not rooted in a feminine experience either. I feel like it really is disconnected from the two of those, and I fluctuate between the experience of gender a lot. So for me, non-binary is the term that I feel like represents my experience the best, and that's how I choose to identify. Cisgender is someone who does identify with the sex they were assigned at birth. So my mom was assigned female at birth. She's cisgender. She identifies as a female. My dad was assigned male at birth. He identifies as a male. My dad is cisgender as well. My friend Emma, she identifies as a woman. She was not assigned the sex female at birth. She is transgender. So just Mary, can we go back just one quick? Sorry, there's the trans feminine, trans masculine terms. So these terms are ones that I feel like are super important that I just want to shine a light on, because around like 10 years ago, when I first even discovered what a trans identity was, we were using terms like male to female and female to male, like trans female to male, trans male to female. And we don't do that anymore. We don't use that language anymore. And instead, we change to trans feminine or to trans masculine. The reason for that is saying that someone is male to female. When someone tells us that they're trans, nothing about them changes. The only thing that changes is what we know about that person. So nothing actually changed. They actually never were male, and they didn't change over to female. They always were female, and we just know that she is and has always been a woman now. So saying that she was male to female trans, it doesn't really do her experience justice or speak to it in an authentic way. So to say that she's trans feminine is a much better term to use, because it doesn't imply that she was ever man, because she wasn't. Thanks, Mary. We can go to the next one now. All right, folks, and just to give you a visual interpretation of what we chatted about there, just in the last slide, we have gender identity. So you can see our gender unicorn here is going to help us out. Gender identity, we can see in our unicorn's brain from how the unicorn experiences the world. This is the unicorn's gender identity. So you can see all the different spectrum lines there, female, male, other genders as well. So that's right here in your head, and how you experience the world is your gender identity. The next one is gender expression. You can see the green dots going all around our gender unicorn, because gender expression shows up in your whole self and how you express yourself physically, verbally, and how you dress and how you style yourself. The next one is your sex assigned at birth. So you can see it's either male, female, or intersex, and you can see that on the unicorn there. It has to do with the genital configuration and the sex that the doctor writes on the birth certificate. Then we have physical attraction and emotional attraction. We can see those are right here in the same space. And so that's who you experience attraction to. So that has to do with your sexual orientation. And I'll speak to how physical and emotional attraction are separated as well. And that's because sometimes someone can experience perhaps a sexual attraction to a gender identity, but not a romantic attraction. And at the same time, someone can experience a romantic attraction, but not a sexual attraction. And we chatted about that identity earlier. That's asexual. That's someone who experiences perhaps a romantic attraction, but not the sexual attraction. And it can definitely happen the other way. They can have the sexual attraction, but not the romantic attraction. And that can even happen with different genders too. Like maybe you can have emotional and sexual attraction to one gender, but only sexual attraction to another gender. So really, really interesting how attraction emotionally and physically can come into play. All right, so this is a very important topic surrounding gender identity, and it's called transitioning. So when someone is in the process of letting us know that they are trans, maybe they're changing their name, maybe they're coming out to their friends, maybe they're changing their pronouns or the way that they dress, see themselves, that is when that's what a transition is. That's maybe the starting steps of it for some people, maybe further steps of it for others. But transitioning falls under three different kind of categories. There's three different ways we like to group it out into social, medical, and legal, just to kind of give a couple different sections. It's very personal and it's very different for everyone. Some folks will seek out all three of those categories. Some folks will do a few of them. Some folks will do like literally only a few pieces of it. It still counts as a transition, and it's not like the more you do, the more points you get. It's not a score system. So that, someone's trans identity can't be more valid than another trans identity based on how many steps they've taken to transition. That's not how it works. A person's transition is so subjective and unique to themselves that, everyone's experience tends to look different. And I just really wanted to start off this discussion with that point. Uh, just because really, I think a lot of times we get caught up in ideas and like, especially what the media tells us transition looks like or what a trans person should be. And in reality, the diversity of trans folks in the world is like just as diverse as like the amount of like people and identities in the world. Like trans people show up in so many different ways and identities, and there's absolutely, definitely not one way to be trans. So let's break up those three categories. The first one is social. So this is maybe when you let your friends know your name. It's when you let your friends know your pronoun. And it's when you start to dare to present and express a little bit differently. Medical is different medical interventions. So that could come in the form of hormone blockers if folks are under the age of 18. Which are totally reversible as well. Then we have hormone replacement therapy, which could be like coming in the form of like injections or like testosterone injections or estrogen as well. There's gender affirming and transition related surgery. So that could be like facial feminization surgery. It could be different like gender affirming care surgeries on like sexual characteristics as well. So that's what the medical piece is. Then we have the legal piece. So this is when someone has like legally changes their name and or a gender marker like on a passport and a driver's license. You have to change your social insurance number and your name on that. So actually, I don't know if you have to change the actual number, but the name on it you have to do. Your provincial medical coverage has to get switched. Your passport has to get switched. You have to call educational institutions. Like if I ever needed my transcripts from Dalhousie, I would have to get the name updated on there. If I ever needed references from previous employers, I would have to get my name fixed in their records. For insurance, auto, home, health, you would have to get all that. Bank records, phone companies, utility providers, gyms, anything you have a subscription with, any profile you have online that's connected to your email. And this piece can typically be the one that it actually like ends up being like taking so long because there's so many pieces. And one of my very close friends has a really funny story that she shares, funny, but also like, not haha funny, just a little ridiculous funny, is that she got her name changed with the government and, went through everything to like try and complete her legal transition. And she got her name change letter from the government letting her know, like, congrats, Emma, your name's officially Emma, you're good to go. And on it, the mail, it was addressed to her dead name, to her previous name, when in the office sending it had literally just changed her name over. But something about in the system of where it was hadn't been updated. So it just speaks to like literally how difficult it can be. And I think my main point for this whole slide, what I want you folks to leave this slide knowing is that trans people don't owe the world a specific type of transition, and that any way that trans folks choose to transition is the perfect and valid way for them to transition. So what are some challenges? We get invasive questions. Lots of folks get asked about their surgeries a lot of times, which is totally not appropriate. It wouldn't be appropriate to, ask a colleague about what, is happening with their genitalia. And when you're asking invasive questions about their surgeries, that is what you're doing. It's absolutely not okay. If someone asked me something like that in the workplace, it would make me so uncomfortable. They experience prejudice, discrimination, harassment, assault, violence. All of that is compounding marginalization and it informs their experience. Even when they come to work, I know I've got friends who, experience things as they walk down the street, things getting yelled to them. Don't go out at night alone. When they walk the streets, they have things said to them, which is just wild. And it does happen, absolutely. They experience lack of affirming supports, impacts on mental health. I can speak to at least our province here in Nova Scotia. We don't have any doctors who do gender affirming care. So anyone who wants to medically transition in a way that involves gender affirming like surgeries has to travel to Montreal. That's the closest place you can get it. There's social expectations and perceptions of gender norms, roles, and stereotypes. The idea so many trans men feel this social pressure of having to be like super masculine and butch in order to be like a valid trans man. And that is not the case. Like absolutely at all. I know trans men who wear makeup, who are I have friends who identify as gay men who wear makeup and are very feminine. So why can't trans men wear makeup and be very feminine too? They absolutely can. And then there's correcting IDs, documentation, accessing affirmative care. But yes, the key takeaway, gender diverse folks don't owe the world a transition or to match the world's idea of what their transition should look like. So names and pronouns. Pronouns are the words we use in place of people's names when we're speaking about them. They're an important vehicle for sharing and respecting someone's gender identity. And they're not a preference. I know when we started learning about pronouns, we were using the language preferred pronouns. Someone doesn't have pronouns that they prefer. Someone just has the pronouns that they have. They continue to matter when the person is not around. So as I've been talking about my friend Emma, I've been using she, her pronouns for her because those are her pronouns. And we don't get to decide a person's pronouns based off of how we perceive them. So that one can be a little bit tricky as well, because I know a lot of times we're used to, okay, I'm gonna use this pronoun for this person, I'm gonna use this pronoun for this person, and maybe you can make a guess, but you can never truly know a person's pronouns until you ask them. And a great way to start off that discussion, because I know sometimes it can be hard, or you're gonna say, oh, it might be awkward to ask. Something that you can do that can also identify you as a great ally for folks who might use different pronouns can be introducing yourself with your pronouns. Hey folks, I'm Connor. I use he, him, and they, them pronouns. Just like that. And whether or not the person chooses to introduce themselves with their pronouns or not, you have let them know that you are a safe person that they can talk about their pronouns with. You've let them know that you know what pronouns are and you're ready to use them properly. So let's go through a couple examples of pronouns. We, of course, start off with she, her, hers, herself, he, him, and his self. Now we have some other pronouns as well. They, them, theirs, themselves. I'm sure everyone here is used to using these in the plural term. However, with a lot of folks who are identifying as non-binary, we're also using these singularly a lot as well. That's not a new thing. We constantly, probably almost every day, use they, them in singular terms as well. If I found this smoothie on the desk and I'm in the office with Merve, I would say, Merve, do you know who owns this smoothie? I'm sure they're missing that. I said they're missing that, but I'm talking about one person. If I found some keys on the ground, I would say, oh, someone lost their keys. They probably want this back. I just used they, but I just used it singularly as well. And I think the earliest like dated use of they, them as a singular pronoun goes as far back to like Shakespearean times. It is not something new. It's something that we use singularly every day. And with a little bit of practice, I absolutely know that anyone can use they, them pronouns properly and singularly for folks. I've seen it done. You can absolutely do it. A little bit of brain retraining and you can get there. So they, them is a pronoun that I use as well. It's like, so an example of they, them pronouns in a sentence is, hey, Merve, when Josh is done their break, can you let them know that they can go work on the RTO9 project? Like I just used they, them like 3 times, I think, in that sentence in a singular way. So just a little example of that for you folks. And then the last one is another example of neopronouns. It's ze, zir, her, zir, and hers, zir, self, and here, self. This is one that I have only encountered folks who use each of these, the zir and the here, I've only met one person who uses each of those each. So like one person uses zir, one person uses here. But they do come around, and actually it's really interesting. This speaks to like our global context and that context of bringing more voices in. This one is actually really popular in other continents, and actually is used more widely in New Zealand too, which is cool to know. So mistakes, what happens if you make mistakes? They happen. Folks, I make mistakes too. And I'm literally here teaching this workshop, and I also make mistakes. It's okay. You can train your brain very, very hard and work very hard, and still sometimes you're going to make a mistake because we are humans and that's who we are. So speaking true to that human experience, how can we navigate that situation when we do make a mistake? So some potential mistakes we could make could be maybe dead naming, so calling someone by their previous or pre-transition name, just like my colleague who had their dead name on their letter. Misgendering, which would be using the incorrect pronoun for someone. So when we catch ourselves making these mistakes, the best process is to acknowledge it. So if I was talking about, we'll use my dog Samson as the example. So my dog Samson has he, him pronouns. But let's say I was talking about Samson and I said, oh, she really wants her dinner. And I'd say, so I'm going to acknowledge my mistake, I'm going to correct myself, and then I'm going to move on. So I go, oop, sorry, Samson uses he, him pronouns. Samson really wants his dinner. And then I'm going to move on. And I'm just going to say, okay, let's go get dinner. The reason why we don't want to make a big deal over making a mistake around pronouns is because it then puts a responsibility and an onerous on the person who was misgendered or dead named to forgive us. And when we make a big deal about that, we're almost asking the person who experienced that to put their own feelings aside and to like make us feel better. And as an ally, we need to recognize that trans people experience microaggressions every single day of their lives, and it informs their experience. And something that we can do as an ally is to remove that responsibility of them for having to like take care of us when we make a mistake about their identity, but their identity is some kind of burden that's causing their friends distress now. Like that's not how you want to feel. So acknowledge that experience, speak truth to it, correct yourself, correct the mistake, and move on. Show that you are committed to using the correct language. This is the best way to deal with that situation. And our final line closing this slide is we definitely need to work to respect people's pronouns, but especially if we feel like people's pronouns don't match our perception of the person's gender or gender expression. So we need to work extra hard, and it's not just enough to like look at someone and say, oh, this is our perception of this person's gender expression, so this is what their pronouns are. Certainly, no. The only way you can know someone's pronouns truly is to ask them or be told by them. So folks, this is our last slide closing up our inclusion in the workplace piece before I throw it over to Merve to start chatting about Rainbow Registered. But I really want to share some stats with you folks just to set up kind of the framework of why 2S LGBTQI+ inclusion in the workplace is important. I mean, we've talked about some of the barriers already, but I want to specifically dive into some stats just so we can really get a full picture of this. So compared to heterosexual men, bi women are 64% less likely to be employed. Bi men are 56% less likely to be employed, and gay men are 32% less likely to be employed. Very, very interesting, and also interesting to see the bisexuality piece at play there as well, because a lot of times bi folks get erased out of data in our community. Gender diverse folks, almost half of them live below the poverty line, almost 50%, versus the general Canadian population of 11.6% below the poverty line. That is a huge difference. It's alarming, in fact. About 1 in 3 experience precarious employment. So that's like non-permanent or contract work. 26 to 41% have been fired, dismissed, or turned down for a job post-interview. 13 to 22% were unemployed when the survey took place as well. So just an idea of some of the barriers to employment for gender diverse folks, or what's going on in the world as well. Some workplace experiences. Almost half of lesbian, gay, and bi women reported experiencing inappropriate behavior in the workplace over the last 12 months. Almost half. That is terrible. And over a third of gay and bi men. So that's more than double the number of their straight colleagues. So you can really truly see there are very high levels of inappropriate behavior in the workplace happening to members of the 2S LGBTQI plus community. But specifically, the next one for trans folks, 70% of gender diverse Canadians experienced inappropriate behavior in the workplace over the last 12 months, which is 3 times the number of their cisgender colleagues. So some alarming stats there, and it really, really speaks to why what Merve is about to share about inclusive workplaces and the tangible actions folks can take to make their workplaces more inclusive is so, so pivotally important.
Thank you, Connor. I think this will bring us to our next slide. I think even though we are working very closely together, Connor and I, each time when I re-listen to this presentation, is that each time I learn something new or I get like a new perspective on certain information, because we are, like Connor mentioned earlier, we are all learning a bit more, and what we want to do with these webinars is to just like keep the conversations going. We don't want to have a fear about talking about these topics, because among all, whether you are someone within the community or someone that knows someone that is in the community, or if you're simply just an ally, it's always fun to just like learn something and be allowed and able to ask a question, or just like join a webinar like this one and learn a bit more. And now we're going to talk a bit about the Rainbow Registered Accreditation, which is a national accreditation, and we use this accreditation to highlight the efforts of all businesses and organizations across Canada from coast to coast to coast. A little bit about the history and why it was created. So the Rainbow Registered Accreditation was created as within a partnership between the CGLCC and Tourism HR Canada. This year in June, we celebrated our 3-year anniversary, which was very like pivotal for us because a lot of businesses joined in the past 3 years. A lot of businesses from all over Canada were able to experience, okay, what even is the Rainbow Registered Accreditation? And what does it bring to folks that travel? And at the beginning, it had a very big tourism focus, which is still now our like core, our base. We do work with all types of other businesses as well, and moving over to big corporations as well, which is very great because we can see an incline in businesses and people that are in leadership positions in wanting to make their workplaces more inclusive. So all in all, the accreditation will identify LGBTQI plus friendly entities. We will use this accreditation to highlight progressive policies and inclusive cultures. And the certification is only awarded if a business, and I'm going to use the term business, but please feel free to include like organizations, nonprofit, and everything in there. So the certification is only awarded if a business is meeting the required standards. Now we can ask ourselves, what even are the standards? What is being evaluated? What are we looking into? What we are looking into and what are 4 pillars. So the Rainbow Registered Accreditation is made up of 4 like main pillars. At first, we have policies and practices. Then we have training, culture of inclusion, and commitment to inclusive leadership. For policies and practices is where we want to see, are there any inclusive policies and practices already in place? Is there an employee handbook? Is there a guidebook? Are there certain things in place that say this is how we would act if we have an employee that is transitioning? This is how we would support this employee. These are like the certain policies that we have worked on that are in place. And this is what we would be looking for. And when I say we, it means that we work with external assessors, evaluators that will assess those evidence pieces. And more to that later. to the evidence pieces. Then we have training. For training, we're really looking into, has the business offered or provided any training to their employees to learn something more? Simply, just like this webinar, just to give an insight onto what even is the acronym? How do I use a pronoun? What do I do if I have a client or a customer or a volunteer coming to my business and is asking me certain things? Am I well equipped to serve this client or this customer? If I'm in a hotel and I have a queer couple coming towards me, how would I address them? How would I properly serve their needs without making a remark that might be like serving as a barrier to them, which can happen. It's not always. Then we have culture of inclusion. This is more about the internal work culture. Is it encouraged to perhaps use pronouns? I've seen a lot of folks that we work with in their email signature, the pronouns are included. It's not obligatory, like it's not something, not a must. But if it's like done for some folks that would like to use their pronouns, even better, please do so. Perhaps there are some pride flags in the office. Perhaps during Pride Month, even there's a Pride Trivia Night that is being organized just for fun, just to get to know the community a bit more and learn more about what everything that incorporates like queer culture and what is in there, because there are a lot of fun things in there as well and a lot of great things to learn. Finally, the fourth pillar is commitment to inclusive leadership. Here's where we want to see where business goes above and beyond. Whether you work specifically with folks that you know are perhaps not homophobic, and you try to give your business to folks that represent also your values as well. Perhaps you also give some in-kind support to your local queer nonprofits that are oftentimes severely underfunded. And perhaps you offer, like during Pride Month, your hotel or something like that for queer folks that are visiting your region to join the Pride Month or the Pride Parade. And in total, we are looking for 3 evidence pieces in each of these pillars. So a total of 12. And those 12 evidence pieces will be provided, will be submitted. And once they are submitted, an assessor will be paired with you and they will look over the evidence pieces, meet with you, and verify whether they meet the requirements. I always like to include like some like visuals just to give you an idea, okay, what can perhaps be submitted as evidence pieces. These things are always like subject to change. As we learn more about the acronym and as the community evolves and as like new things like pop up, also the evidence pieces that are being submitted are like subject to change as well. But these have been submitted in the past. Sorry, these have been submitted in the past by previous applicants who have been closed and accredited. For example, I often get asked, oh, Merve, we don't have a gender neutral washroom. Do we have to spend a lot of money to construct something, to build something? I recently worked with a hotel in the Yukon in Whitehorse who really showed me how they made their bathroom gender neutral by, for example, this is not their example, but by, for example, adding like the WC on top of the toilet, or a family key for the washroom. And those are considered gender neutral washrooms because they are not gendered, for example. And this is a great evidence piece that can be submitted. Additionally, I like to include these ones, for this is like a local coffee shop that chose to include like pronouns on their name tags. Then if you as a team had like a communal effort to go like to the local Pride Parade and you have a photo there, please include that as well, because this is what this particular business owner did and submitted for their accreditation. Maybe there's a positive client review as well. Here I have included something that like also like a client had submitted. So maybe it's a testimonial that was given to you by like a previous employee. All of these things can be used as an evidence piece. So anything that supports your case and anything that says, hey, look, this is what we've already done. We have done the work. Here is the screenshot. Here's the PDF document. Here's another photo. All that can be included. Yes. So why should you register and become Rainbow Registered? Why should you sign up? Why should you go this route? So one thing that Connor touched a bit on is like how to making your business more inclusive a little bit will help you be more receptive to the queer customer, to the queer client, to the in general to the queer employee. So it will increase like business growth because inclusive environments attract to us LGBTQI plus communities. We also offer CGLCC benefits. So the Rainbow Registered status unlocks additional CGLCC opportunities, such as access to our to our policies and our inclusive guides and anything that you would need to improve your internal policies and practices. I'm always giving that as an example, but like anything else that is like might be included in your internal work culture. Then also for workforce diversity, so the access to qualified personnel, including to us LGBTQI plus individuals, is being increased in there because when I first came to Canada, I was trying to find a job and I was not really out in my home yet, and it was really new to me, and I was a bit scared and a bit shy, and it's a new country, and you don't know how folks react. Even though Canada is like really known as like a receptive country and as like receptive to the queer community, I was still a bit hesitant because for myself, I hadn't come out fully yet. So a workplace that encourages it and that maybe would have had like a pride flag outside, or maybe they would have used their pronouns or something like that, would have helped me to be like, okay, wow, I feel I can be myself in this place and I feel safe, because safety is a big issue in that. And that would really fall into like the workforce diversity aspect and help make you be more receptive to queer folks for your business. Then how to apply. So it's quite simple process. Also sometimes subject to change because we are working on implementing new processes that will facilitate the process as well with the application. But for now, you visit this cglcc.ca website and review our application guide, which I can also send folks that are joining today. You will create a web account, pay the required fee, and you will be paired with an assessor in no time. They will schedule a first initial 15-minute call with you. You meet with them, you talk with them, you get to know them. They will find out, okay, where you are at with your preparation for the assessment. And after that, you will have a 1 hour call, which will be the actual assessment. Once you have all the evidence pieces ready, that call will help you evaluate whether you meet the requirements or not. Finally, the CGLCC will notify applicants of the decision and next steps. Those who meet the standards and are accredited will receive a Rainbow Registered welcome kit containing marketing materials, the detailed assessment and evaluation of 2S LGBTQI diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. So the detailed assessment will actually show you if if there's room for growth, or if there's something that is, or maybe everything is all right and everything that you've done to submit and everything that you have submitted is like meeting all the requirements. But typically the assessment and the business development report is always a great thing to understand, okay, this is an evaluation of our work, of our 2S LGBTQI plus inclusive work. Then you'll also be have the Rainbow Registered affiliation, like with our Rainbow Registered mark, which you see in the back here and also on the presentation right there. You will have the access to our guides, and you'll be included on our Rainbow Registered consumer-facing website. Furthermore, what I didn't include on this slide here, but we have monthly, typically monthly What's the Buzz sessions. They're going to start at the end of October again. And it's for registered businesses who want to learn more. We have a lot of topics on intersectional identities. What does it mean to be racialized and queer? What does it mean to have other intersecting identities and be queer? And it's all about getting the conversation going and what the current buzz is about and what's there to learn. And that's what you will have access to once you become a Rainbow Registered business. This is a wonderful screenshot that I made and included here just to show you, okay, who is already a Rainbow Registered business and how can customers find your business. This is our consumer-facing website. As you can see, we have a lot of strong like regions here, especially I think Ontario, Halifax, Nova Scotia is like very popular for us as well. But as you can see, there's like that one hotel on the top, like in the Yukon, which is like visible and accredited. Your business can be one of those that are as visible here. We have different categories, whereas accommodations, attractions, entertainment, leisure. And by selecting one of those categories, they can come to your business or they can simply type the name of your business in and they can find you there and know, okay, this is a registered business, and they went through all the processes, and I will go and put my money exactly there and not somewhere else because I know that they did all the work.
And just saying RTO9 has a great presence on that map as well, stretching all the way from Prince Edward County up to just a little bit past Ottawa. Lots of great folks. And I think our biggest, Kingston does great in that region as well. Yeah, I think Prince Edward County has a really large concentration too, but RTO9 is doing great. So shout out to RTO9 and to Meg as well for all the awesome work happening there.
Yes. Thank you for adding that, Connor. I think it's very visible that if there are folks in certain companies that are leading it and saying, hey, trust this accreditation, go do that, go apply for that. That's why also for me, a big thank you, Meg, for organizing this. So in terms of duration, if you ask, oh, Merve, how long will this take? Will this take like a year? How much money do I have to invest in this? How much time? So typically, if you're ready and if you have all the evidence pieces already, the only thing that you need to do is collect everything and sign up. Because in the application guide that will be accessible to you, you will find an Appendix C, and in that Appendix C is like a list of items that can be submitted for your accreditation. If it doesn't fit one of those like examples that is listed there, just bring everything that you have to your accreditation, maximum on a minimum of 3 evidence pieces for each category, and you can be done in up to a month. Typically, Connor, correct me if that's wrong, but up to a
Oh
month.
my gosh, yeah. Even quicker sometimes for people who are extra prepared.
Exactly. So it depends on you. It is a process, but if you don't meet the standards initially, if in one category you're maybe lacking a bit, and I don't even want to say lack, maybe if there's like room for growth in one of those categories, you have up to 1 year to work on everything and get reaccredited, reassessed at no extra cost. And in that time, with the business development report that will be given to you, you know exactly what area to target. And you know, okay, for training, I just need to attend one more training and just learn a bit more about towards LGBTQI plus inclusion. And maybe there's like a policy webinar that I can access. And oftentimes we do offer these webinars. And there are a lot of local organizations as well that are also there and providing the work. And because I don't want you to come to the CGLCC and just do everything with us, but there are a lot of like other communities that are providing these webinars just to learn and bring you folks to the next level. But in total, you would have up to 1 year. And and if you choose to get reassessed, then you will meet the requirements and you can get reaccredited by then. The CGLCC membership, I touched a little bit on that, but if you become a Rainbow Registered Accredited business, you will become a Rainbow Registered member, and you will get discounts on CGLCC events. Here are the What's the Buzz sessions again that I mentioned, and you will get a national directory listing in English and French directories, and be able to network with a lot of more businesses that are also within our system and are Rainbow registered and did the same work and that you did. And that will be all. I hope I didn't rush too much through it, but Connor's and I emails are listed here. If you have any questions and if you would like to find out more, please feel free to shoot us an email. Or on our website, there's also like our meeting link. You can just block a time, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. And yeah, I think we're good in time. And I'm gonna pass it over back to Connor to say like, and to Meg to make say our like thank yous and for questions, maybe.
Thanks so much, Merve. Fabulous job of pitching Rainbow Registered there and chatting about all of the fabulous ways folks can use Rainbow Registered to uplift and amplify their inclusion goals within their business. But also, what's great about it is it doesn't end right after the accreditation because it's administered by the CGLCC. It's not just an accrediting body. We've got our whole living and breathing programming team that has all kinds of activations for Rainbow Registered business members. And of course, we covered so much much today. So absolutely, like Merve said, folks, you can grab our emails there. Whether you're in the session today or whether you're watching this back on a recording, feel free to send us an email and we can definitely chat. But Meg, I want to say a huge thank you to you, Meg, for always working with us, championing Rainbow Registered. We so appreciate you. And it's always a pleasure working with you. And this time was certainly no exception to that.
Well, thank you both for coming and speaking on this again for our lovely stakeholders here in RTO9. I also did want to do a plug for the CGLCC workshops that come up, webinars seems to be once a month on Wednesdays. They do webinars. We share them on the RTO9 website in our events. So if you're ever looking for something and you forget what the acronym is, you can also always check the RTO9 website. We always share the workshops that they're doing because they're doing some really great EDI stuff. So it's always worth checking out to watch those webinars, get some learning in. I believe if you're registered, they're free to attend. So it's worth looking into the different workshops that they have going on. They're always something that you can do over lunch. So it's the perfect way, lunch and learn. But thank you, Merve, and thank you, Connor, for coming and speaking to us about the CGLCC and Rainbow Registered and a little bit of learning for businesses on, the different folks in the community. We really appreciate it. And as they mentioned, reach out. If you have questions, please reach out. Think about getting Rainbow Registered. It makes it really easy for us to help promote our 2S LGBTQIA plus businesses and supporters so that we can promote those travel ideas and itineraries and destinations to the travel community. So thank you both for coming today. And thank you for those of you who attended, and thank you for those of you who are watching from home. We really appreciate it. And again, reach out with questions. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see you all.
Great to see you too. Thank you for coming.
Bye, everyone. Thank you very much.
Bye.